Welcome back to Rising. Niall, what is in your notes today?
One that I think you're going to disagree with, Robbie. There's a political conflict that we maybe don't talk enough about. It's the growing, simmering tension between the United States and Europe. One of the biggest ingredients driving this growing schism is MAGA's attacks on Europe on cultural grounds. Trump and his allies often draw a picture of European nations that is unrecognisable to those of us with some first-hand knowledge of these places. I see this myself often. People regularly pop up in the online world telling me about how Ireland or Britain are being taken over by foreign hordes, usually Muslim, or have become a police state or some other kind of nightmare hellscape. I roll my eyes at that every time. Please visit Dublin or London. They're great cities, and they bear no resemblance to Elon Musk's dystopian fever dreams. Anyways, debates over free speech are also a big part of the issue. Europeans do believe in free speech, but broadly speaking, they tend to exclude incitement to violence, egregious bigotry, or outright defamation from that category. Americans tend to do less of that. That's a difference of opinion and outlook. It's not the end of civilization. On Saturday, a Trump administration official in the State Department, Sarah Rogers, made a video which she posted to X, dramatically announcing she was able to make it because she was, quote, travelling on a diplomatic passport. And in it, she cited examples of the supposed horrors of European censorship. When I checked early this morning, this tweet had more than 6 million views. And guess what? Every one of the examples Rogers gave, every one, was at a minimum more complicated than she made it out to be. Let's take a look.
As I tweeted a few moments ago, a German woman notoriously received a harsher jail sentence than a convicted rapist after the woman called the rapist, quote, a disgraceful pig.
A report on this case from the right-of-centre Daily Telegraph in Britain, no less, includes a vital paragraph buried very deep down within it. The woman in question, it noted, quote, was sentenced to a weekend in jail after her comments because she had a previous conviction for theft and had not attended the court hearing for the case. By the way, I personally would not defend the lenient sentences in the rape case that was mentioned there, but they were issued largely because the perpetrators were, legally speaking, juveniles. Next.
Similarly, a British woman was dragged out of her bath by 11 police officers after she referred in a private text message to a man who allegedly violently assaulted her as, quote,
This is the Elizabeth Kinney case in Britain. It's much murkier than Rogers makes it appear. Another right-leaning British newspaper, The Sun, notes deep in its story, quote, none of the messages or context were fully read out in court. The Kinney case is made even more complicated because the complainant here was a female friend, or I guess former friend, who seemingly felt threatened or alarmed by private messages Kinney had sent her. The Sun reported that, quote, abusive and homophobic text messages were sent to the victim here being Kinney's former friend, quote, causing her alarm and distress. Next.
And victims of violent crime aren't the only people who lack free speech rights in Europe. In Sweden, an activist called Rasmus Paludan was jailed after he burned a Koran and referred to Islam as gay Islam.
First of all, Rasmus Paludan makes an unlikely hero for free speech warriors. His political movement wants Islam banned. In any event, it's not quite clear whether he was actually jailed. He was certainly convicted in 2022, but just in October, an appeals court in Sweden partially acquitted him. At issue is the question of whether Paludan's actions amounted to criticism of Islam, which very much is allowed under Swedish law, or whether it was incitement and abuse of Muslims, which is not. And here's the last example.
Finally, in Germany, a man faced a criminal investigation for referring to Green Party leader Ricarda Lang as, quote, fat.
According to a German magazine, citing the fat comment as the driver of this case is, quote, simply not what is happening, end quote. The user in question also allegedly posted an image of an obese white woman in a sexual act with a black man, accompanied by a caption that translates as, quote, Ricarda Lang is now personally processing asylum applications as well. that posting, at the very least, has the potential to run afoul of German defamation laws, as well as measures intended to protect public figures, particularly women, from being the target of harassment using sexualized images. Again, this comes back to the bigger point. Is it better or worse for public discourse to allow vigorous debate, but to disallow incitement, abuse, and defamation? I would argue the European model is clearly better, and that the absence of such protections has made American public discourse crude and degraded. But of course, there is another question here as well. It's the Trump administration posing as vigorous defenders of free speech. The president who tries to get late-night comics kicked off the air. The president who has weaponized the Federal Communications Commission to do his bidding. The president who has waged a war on academia and, of course, the media. The most recent rankings of press freedom internationally from Reporters Without Borders are dominated in the best way by European nations. Norway is number 1. Ireland, I'm glad to say, is a creditable number 7. The UK, an acceptable number 20. And the United States, number 57, nestled between Sierra Leone and Gambia. Maybe, just maybe, when it comes to free speech, MAGA isn't in any position to be casting the first stone.
Very provocative, Niall.
We will disagree on this one, because
yes.
we've disagreed on this one before.
Yes. Obviously, you know more about these 4 incidents you highlighted than I do. There's nothing really I can say for a couple of them. That last one, though, does strike me. The political figure being made mocked in a sexual way or likened to a white woman having sex with a black man, something like that. Crude, coarse, but seems to me something that absolutely ought to be permitted as a kind of political satire. And how is that different in characteristic? You criticize, and I do as well, Trump inveighing against late-night comics, but one of the staples of Stephen Colbert, for example, has been to associate Trump and Putin like they're having sex or something, like it's a gay sex thing. Trump's sexuality, his physicality, his persona is mocked in crude and coarse and graphic terms by our progressive media, and it is celebrated, as it should be, as a cherished First Amendment right. So I don't know what is different, and this seems to me exactly that kind of thing, exactly the kind of attacks Trump has faced, and not just Trump, as of our political figures stretching back and back through time.
Well, for a start, I have never liked that propensity to mock the Trump-Putin relationship in sexual terms.
I don't like it, but I would defend it, to the death on First Amendment terms.
I mean, I think that the difference is that in the German case, the suggestion, because a much lower profile figure for a start, is that the person was actually suggesting that the German politician in question was, is it obvious mockery, or are they suggesting that she has some weird, I don't know, sexual motivation for dealing in the way she does? There is also, of course, the increasing issue of the use of deep fakes and AI and all of that to create images that are plausible but false, plausible but faked. And I think that obviously female politicians are targeted with that more so than male politicians.
Well, we have defamation and libel too. Our standards are it's harder to prove under the U.S. standard, but I would not, maybe in the most free speech kind of philosophical thinking, I might actually be theoretically in favor of getting rid of that. But we do have that, so. If you manipulate an image and genuinely, misrepresent something as happening that didn't happen, that is what defamation was literally designed to prevent, accusing someone of having a venereal disease or something falsely and then impacting their reputation, and then they would suffer job loss. That is the textbook thing that this category of law is designed to protect. So we should have that, and we might have to update those laws as new technology develops. I know, we had one thing in the U.S. in California to target deep fakes that got struck down on First Amendment grounds. You might be able to craft something that, copyright, when pirating music became a thing, then copyright law got updated. You can't do that. That's illegal. So something like that could apply to the circumstances, I'm open to hearing it. But when political figures, let me say this, when political figures start to use the quantity of harassment they're getting as some kind of, as an excuse to do, I mean, censorship, I think, of mockery is something I'd be more worried about. I mean, you got to have thick skin to be in the business of doing politics. I'm less sympathetic to those cases than a case of a truly, ordinary citizen, not a political figure, facing waves of online harassment. Maybe there should be something done differently. But the political figures, you got to get down in the muck if you're going to purport to govern, is what I would say.
I shall give you the last word on that, Rob.
Thank you very much, Niall. Next up, Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene recounted how President Trump was angry with her over her support for releasing the Epstein files. Stay with us.